Hey, everybody. My name is Peter Coffin. You probably know me for a lot of different reasons. I'm a YouTuber, of course, kind of a comedian-ish YouTuber. I used to be a lot more focused on comedy. Now it's kind of more like, let's hang back, relax a little bit, talk about society some, and we'll throw in some jokes when we can. I'm also a fairly accomplished author. I am in the 95th percentile of sales on Amazon.com for books. I'm a documentary filmmaker with hundreds of thousands of views on my films. And now I'm the lead singer, primary songwriter, and instrumentalist of the band That Darn Racket. Now I'm making a real album of music that's not necessarily funny. Like there's some humor on it, but it's not a funny record. That being said, I made a cover of Genuine's Pony for my documentary Horseshoe Theory is Right, but Not How You Think. You could probably understand the joke of doing Pony for that. And I thought, what better way to introduce the concept of That Darn Racket, the band, which is, by the way, currently only a band in the sense that Gorillaz is a band. It's a guy pretending to be a band, but it's a band, okay? Horseshoe Theory is Right, but Not How You Think is coming out on October 6th. There is a premiere stream at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with me and Caleb Maupin of CPI. And then there is also going to be the premiere at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The earlier you can be there, the better. It's going to be a hell of a lot of fun. I think it's a good film. I think the song is great. Listen to it on Spotify. Believe me, it helps get the song out there, even to just listen to it on Spotify. Now, I've been a very strong proponent of AI since AI started being a big thing in image generation and video generation and text and all these things. I have found uses for AI for, and that makes some people very upset. Now, it's my opinion that art made by AI kind of sucks. I'm not saying that because I think it's like technically bad. It's not technically bad. It's actually technically very good. But the thing that makes art not just technically good is the human life that contextualizes it. Your sensibilities, your life experience, the things that influence you to make decisions and choices. That is what art is, at least in my eyes. Well, I'm not saying that just because something has human life imbued in it, that it is automatically good. It also needs to be technically good. Enter the Pony video. Now, this video is a mixed media presentation. It is very, very oriented towards AI, but you'll find that AI has a lot of different uses in it. The first is in masking myself so I can be a band. So what does that mean? Here, look. So this is the quote unquote band shot for the video. It's just filmed in my basement. I put an extreme fisheye on it as to evoke the 1990s look of a lot of music videos. You obviously only see me in the horse girl costume at the moment. So let's get into how this works. If you look on this timeline, you can see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 layers of footage and an adjustment clip above it. The adjustment clip is where I put the film emulation plugin, which I think is very responsible for how good it all looks together. You'll see that in just a second. So I'm going to go from the bottom layer to the top. I'm just going to disable layer by layer and show you what each piece of footage is. So this piece of footage at the very bottom of the stack is the drummer. This is me with a unicorn mask on and entirely white clothing. I am sitting at a children's drum set, which you can't really tell is a children's drum set in the fisheye. That is, of course, very intentional. Just for quick reference, this is the close-up shot of me playing those drums. It is a forced perspective shot. It is not something that was done in post or anything. It's just a normal shot that has been color corrected to look pretty damn nice, I'd say. Like, look at that. But the reason the drums look like what I would call a normal-sized drum set is because they are much closer to the camera than I am. Because buying a real drum set is about $200 minimum, whereas buying a children's drum set is about $40 off of Facebook Marketplace. I would not buy a full drum set simply to film a music video, but without the aesthetic of a real drum set, I don't know if it sells it as well. I do think this is a very cool shot. However, It's not an effect shot. It's just a forced perspective shot. The lighting is just these little puck lights that I bought for about $34 on Amazon. Having a camera that handles low light very well makes it so that you can get a lot out of something like that. Back to the actual effect shot. But you can see that there is nothing else in this shot. Now we add layer 2, which is the bass player horse. Pink sweatshirt, brown horse. I have hooves on my hands on both the drummer and the bass player. And the way that I've composited this together is not through masking, but rather just simple cropping. You can see this is all I did. It's really, really simple. The fisheye itself isn't even completely lined up. It's just, you can't tell because the middle of it is cut off at the top and bottom. Next, we have our magic mask. This is a magic mask layer. What is magic mask? It is an AI masking tool in DaVinci Resolve, the editing / compositing / color correcting video suite that I use that you can get for free right now. Granted, I do think Magic Mask is a paid feature. Don't quote me on that, but I don't know. I have the paid version, which is $250 and you have it forever, which absolutely thrashes the shit out of paying a monthly subscription of like $50 for Adobe. So you can see on this clip that I have painted some blue and red lines over myself. That is what it is supposed to keep when an AI tracks everything and rotoscopes it. I'll show you what that looks like with nothing behind it. You'll notice that on the floor, it's kind of messy. That's fine because we cover that up later. This is what this piece of footage looks like without the rotoscoping. And now we're going to track it so you see what it does. Rotoscoping on this level is extremely tedious. It is extremely difficult and usually looks like shit if you aren't really, really, really good at it. So thanks to machine learning, you can do this in an amount of time that isn't the rest of my life. In a lot of those frames, there are lines that I drew frame by frame because it glitched or something and it didn't look great. Sure, that's manual work and it takes a while, but it doesn't take the amount of time it would take for me to outline myself in absolutely every single frame. So once we composite our background plates in, we now have what looks like a band. Wowie, look at this. Is it a perfect shot? No, I told you that. That floor is pretty messy looking, which is why we added this clip in, which is just the area that is messy, masked out on the clip with me in it so that the shadows are moving along with me. And it's important to think of those things ahead of time. Like I planned this layer stack before I even shot it. The final layer is the outside of the fisheye lens. It is the one that is coming from the piece of footage with me in it. So any of the little reflections you get on the barrel reflect the quote-unquote hero character, the one in the front, the one that you would be most likely to guess that those types of reflections would be affected. Like your eye is looking for that more than anything from the other two, because the other two don't really affect the light in the barrel so much. So we put all of that together, and then we have our adjustment clip above it, which puts a film emulation plugin over it, gives it halation, gives it glow, gives it film grain. But thanks to machine learning, which is, I mean, exactly what Magic Mask is. It is a machine learning based masking mechanism, which is what we call artificial intelligence or AI. This is what AI can do for you as an artiste. That is probably not the most flagrant use of AI in the video, of course. I did a lot of generative video. The vast majority of video that I generate, I first generate a frame in Midjourney. There is a club scene in this video, and it's pretty much entirely influenced by this single image I generated. Now, you can probably tell that it is not the same thing as what is in the video. The helmet's different, the face is a little different, etc., etc. I did not generate the video from this image. I took that image and I uploaded it into an upscaler called Magnific. You'll notice that in the top right of the image, I put creativity at 10. This sort of gave it liberties to mess with what's going on in the image. And it changed the face favorably. I think that's a much better face than the one in the generated image. But you'll also notice that it made the helmet into hair, which I had to manually fix. And I did that in Photoshop. Now, this is a relatively minor fix. We're just going to use more machine learning. In a lot of other cases, you might have to do a lot more manual stuff, but this is, we're just fixing a helmet. Now, this is, of course, not what the helmet looks like in the video, but it's a pretty damn good one that came out in the first set of generations. It's at this point, I actually should have done something that I didn't do. I wanted her coat to be black. I should have changed that here in Photoshop, which would have been a more manual operation. I probably couldn't have kept that same coat, which I actually think is a fantastic coat, if I had generated a black one over it. I would have just selected the coat and color corrected it to the point that I wanted it to be. And that would have made some stuff later a lot easier for myself because I wouldn't have to be using Magic Mask to change the color of a coat in DaVinci Resolve. I would have instead been generating all of my video from an image with a black coat. So anyway, we are going to save this and we are going to head over to Gen 3, which is Runway ML's generative AI for video. And I'm doing this right now to show you the amount of time it takes if you're actually making this video. But obviously the video is already up and whatever we generate here is clearly not going to go into the video. I think the prompt for this shot was pretty simple if I remember right. I think it was just woman stares longingly at camera while it slowly zooms in. She blinks. I'm going to do that and see if that's what worked. And then I'm going to change it to 5 seconds because generally the first 5 seconds is more reliable. I also, at the moment, have an unlimited plan with Runway ML because it would have very quickly ballooned in cost insanely if I were doing this off of credits. Hundreds easily. So I'm going to generate 3 at once. So for right now, we're using Gen 3 Alpha Turbo, which is the fastest generator because I don't want to spend the time generating footage that I'm not going to use for anything other than just demonstrating how to do it. I'm pretty sure I use their slow generator because it's higher fidelity, but we already have one of them. So let's look at it really quick to see what it does. It kind of blasts into high contrast. I probably wouldn't use this one, but you can see clearly what the deal is here, right? And in order to keep consistent characters throughout the whole video, I would take any of these and I would overlay the face from the image generation on it using a face swapping piece of software called Face Fusion. I think it counts as a deep faker. I don't know. It's a face swapping mechanism. The frame processor, which is the main thing that you're doing, by default, face swapper is enabled. You need to add face enhancer, otherwise it looks like ass. Normally, I would enable CUDA, but I am recording my screen, and I believe that we will not get any generations if I enable that. In source, I'm going to put the magnific generation face, and I'm going to drop my footage into the target. I have reference face distance up at 1.5 because that gives us the most flexibility. So this is this generation video further in. The face is still good, but it's much more obviously generated at this point in the video. I'm going to put it back on so you can see why do this. You can see what it does basically is soften the features, make them a little more consistent with the original frame. It's not like a massive difference, but when you're watching the clip and the face subtly changes throughout it, it's very weird. Whereas if you do this, it does not. Even if it changes the original face a little bit, the face is ultimately consistent, and that's what you want. I will more verbally tell you what I did for shots at this point. For instance, the car was very, very difficult to generate correctly. It's a 67 Ford Mustang that's colored teal. And I pretty much had to add all of the ornaments onto it via Photoshop or via tracking in DaVinci Resolve with some of it. I'll show you kind of the difference. In these shots in the garage, I was in Photoshop able to get a fairly good looking horn onto it. And I put that into the generation and it was very sturdy. It could clearly tell that the horn was part of the car. There are other shots that's not possible in because I just couldn't get it to recognize that the horn is part of the car. The hair, like the mane and the horse tail on the car, I pretty much had to do manually. I had to either Photoshop or draw in or green screen some stock footage of hair blowing onto the video, because Gen 3 does not seem to have horse manes or tails coming out of cars anywhere in its model. It's weird. I don't know why they don't have that, but this was a case where I was actually able to generate footage with those elements in place. And I think that those shots just look significantly better. Like, you see the car moves and those things accept the lighting and any environmental reflections and changes correctly. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get that happening often. Like, for instance, in this shot, I did get the horn onto the car consistently. So the horn is actually showing a reflection in the car, which looks phenomenal. But you'll notice that mane does not have a reflection in the car. And it's because I don't really think that it detracts from the overall image. There's enough going on here that looks quite realistic, or at least not bad, to the point where you buy the shot for the short period of time that it exists for. I am also face swapped onto the driver here. This was before I learned how to puppet a face, so really I'm just looking determined. There is, of course, a means to do that with, and I only did it with one shot because the shot really bothered me, just having no real emotion on the face. I'm not going to get too far into that because it's super involved. Here is that workflow. You can see the emotionless input. You can see that I am really pushing a crazy emotion with my real footage. And ultimately, the output is a little uncanny, so I didn't use a lot of it. But the fact that I get up and my face changes at all in the actual video, I think really does a lot. There's a shot in which the horse girl sprouts angel wings and blasts off in the desert, which is an absurd sentence. But what I did for that was I generated from a prompt the actual video footage that I wanted. It looked like shit, but what I did was I went through a bunch of different iterations where I composited different things onto it. And to be frank, like, the compositing I did was very quick and shitty. And just putting it through Runway made it into a more like correctly composited thing with a style applied over it. Now, it took a lot of generations. And when I say generations, I don't just mean like AI generations, but also you could almost say composite generations. Like, I went through composited things in that I needed, like the dust or the sun or the wings, because the wings were not consistent throughout these generations. It took a lot of times to get them to do what I kind of wanted them to do. I think there was like 5 or 6 composites through Gen 3 where I would take what came out of Gen 3 and I would shittily composite things on. Like, in the first 1 or 2 generations, it kept giving me a second person where the angel took off from. So what I did was I masked that out with a color that was the same color as the sky, although it was very rudimentary. Like, I didn't blend it into the sky at all. But after enough times putting that through Gen 3, it realized that there was supposed to be sky there and filled it in with sky. And also, I have to say, the shot that I puppeted my face onto that we discussed, that was also the product of a new AI that came out really near the end of the production of the video. That gave me shots such as this, which obviously there's stuff to fix in it, but it is so consistent and does what I want it to do. I put my face on it. It looked very good. I had to obviously make that tie not work like it works in this clip, because that is just outwardly wrong. But the majority of this shot is just perfect. The camera movement, where the guy moves. I mean, this is a shocking text to video prompt, in my opinion. It got everything right. It got the clothing right, even down to the leather gloves, which just take in that sun really well. Everything looks really good here. I obviously didn't start at the very beginning of the clip, because then I would have had to figure out how to put the horn on it. And I also didn't even bother with the mane, because if I just start here, nobody's really looking at the hood. Like a lot of selling this just involves knowing where you need to put your effort. I also got some absolutely amazing shots out of it, like the guy just turning tails and driving away. But you'll see it's pretty imperfect. This is another example of a video that A, I cut certain parts of to use, and B, put through Runway ML a number of times to get it how I wanted it. And then I ultimately ended up also compositing the dust from this original shot into the new shot, because I was able to use it to cover up the fact that as it gets further away, the driver becomes a fucking giant. But if you look, you can see that the shot that I generated here is very different from the shot in the actual video. First off, in the actual video, the car is the correct color. I also used Resolve to add some motion blur at the very beginning of this, because that first couple of frames in the original video contained a bunch of artifacting, and therefore in all of the Gen 3 versions, it actually, the first few frames look like total dog shit, but a little horizontal motion blur completely fixed that. All of the artifacting you can't really see. And man, look at those reflections of the desert. That shit is insane. But the shot here, this is how it looks in the video. And see, I composited. He's looking, and see here, he's already a little big. He's a little too big for that car. But it's acceptable at this point as long as you get out of it fast enough, in my opinion. So I took that original dust, composite it right over him. And as the car is driving away, he becomes less and less visible, making, in my opinion, a pretty not a problem shot. It does what I need it to do. If you follow these things and just sort of, rather than think of AI as a thing to get your finished shot out of, you can probably do everything I did in this video and more, because a lot of it is just realizing that you don't have to stop ever. You can keep changing things about it, rerunning it through. The general rule of thumb, I think, is just you need to follow all of the rules of filmmaking, having shots that play to the expectations you have as somebody watching a film. Instead of thinking, how can I get everything I want out of AI? Think, how can I get things that don't trigger that little film expectation thing? Now, I'm not used to making breakdown videos. This isn't the kind of thing that I normally do here at all. I talk about society. I talk about politics. I talk about the economy, Marxism, ideology, et cetera, et cetera. That's what I do here on this channel generally. But I also, am a human being who is interested in things other than what was said in a book 150 years ago. That's why I try to keep this channel fun. But also, like, I am a proponent of AI, and I do think that it's very important to show that there's a lot to do. It's not just that, I typed in things and it spat out what I wanted. Instead, it spat out things that were close to what I wanted, and I changed them and either regenerated them with the changes or used the changes. There is a whole bunch of people who are convinced this is going to take their jobs. Firstly, I don't really think, relatively speaking, in the United States, there is a huge number of people working in jobs that this could replace. And I don't think their jobs are going to go away. I think they're going to have to learn these new tools and probably output 10 times as many things, which may or may not be preferable depending on the extent and uses that the AI actually brings to the table. But in my opinion, what this really does is make it so that somebody like myself can make a full-blown music video where there is a unicorn car and it doesn't look like total shit because I didn't make it in Blender because I don't know how to use Blender. There is a woman in the video who turns into an angel and flies away. If I did it myself in any other way, like I hired a woman to wear angel wings, it would have actually looked worse as opposed to like this. And this stuff is just out of my reach anyway. I can't hire an effects company to do all of the work that would be necessary for this video. So no jobs were replaced by me using any of this stuff. What AI does is basically what the human brain does. It's creating art. It recalls the general idea of the thing that you're talking about and reproduces an approximation of it based on the memory, which is, by the way, not images. It's actually a complex web of parameters saved in a neural network, which is, again, somewhat close to your memory. You do not have an exact copy of any image in your head. You have an approximation that comes from parameters saved in a bio neural network up here. The difference is that the AI doesn't have life to draw from. It doesn't have an ongoing set of inputs that it is constantly dealing with that influences its sensibilities and builds experience for making choices. That stuff is exclusive to humanity. And even if they do create a simulation of it, I don't think it will ever be a quote unquote proper simulation of it. Really, all machine learning can do ultimately is aggregate data. And even if it gets real-time inputs, it's not the same thing as a human life. Senses, sensibility, taste, and experience, these are things that, in my opinion, AI will never have. Without any of that, I literally could never have made this video. Not in a million years. When people get mad about AI companies using data without permission, what that is, it's not copyright. It's instead enclosure. It's the privatization of that data. That data shouldn't have been property in the first place. That's the thing that all of these breadtube idiots get wrong. They want to protect property because in their minds, even though they would never admit to this, they're simply temporarily embarrassed millionaires who want to make it with their art. How they should see it instead is that the business of AI is about the upward transfer of wealth, just like all business ultimately is. If you're not consistently understanding that property is the problem and that as long as property exists, the ruling class will always work to enact some form of enclosure on that property so that it becomes property of the ruling class, that is the problem. If you resolve that relation of production I just outlined, AI is just this amazing thing that enables you to make a music video that you never could have made in a million years otherwise. AI is a technology. It's an automation. It makes life easier. And ultimately, I'm sharing my techniques here and the general gist of what I do for this stuff because I want other people to be able to do this stuff. I don't want people to feel like they can't do things. I like it when people feel like they can. I don't have the idea that there is a guardian class, a philosopher king class, a real artist class that is above everyone else. I think that everyone is an artist on some level. And that's why I think that these tools that assist you in making the thing that's in your head real are good. It's the business aspect that's ultimately bad. Now, you didn't really come to this video for that little soapbox moment, but I mean, that's kind of what you get with me. I do that. The labor of creation should be life's prime want. We should be able to do the things that come to us. We should feel empowered to create, to innovate, to move forward, to actually be allowed to make choices and change things and do things. We shouldn't just be stuck in this endless service sector of a society that we live in today. You're always just like performing some menial task for somebody else. And if you try to improve the process, you're shit on by some boss. Stop it. Don't take anything in your own hands. If it works, it'll make me look bad, and I don't want that. And it's just like that all the way up society. And frankly, I don't like that. This is something, in my opinion, that contradicts that, and I think that's cool. That's all I've got for you today. What do you have for me, though? There's buttons down there. Lick them, slurp all over them, become a subscriber, and don't forget to money me over at patreon.com/PeterCoffin. Up here are my documentaries. Here are more of my short form videos, kind of like this one. I think they're good. I think either way, I think you'll enjoy this stuff. So I thank you very much for spending the time with me. I hope I brought some value to you with this video, and I hope you have a good week. Bye-bye.